Shalom, Yahshua, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh. I do so in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Yasharallah. Kol Holoyim La, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Harachah Kodash, for blessing our elders with the spirit of truth, so that we may know. Shout out to the Akim and the Aquathas, keeping the faith in the works. Y'all keep at it. It's your brother Abaya coming at you with more precepts. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 13, and verse 10. It says, He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Right? That's a promise from the Lord. Right? That the things that were done to the Most High's people will be done to the people that did it to them. And they would also receive double. Right? And in this modern daughter of Babylon, they want us to forget our past. They want us to get over it and self-heal somehow. But at the end of the day, that self-healing will only come through reparations. And those reparations don't have a dollar amount tagged to it. Those reparations come from Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, divine intervention. It's prophetic, right? It will come in the hand of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai when He returns, when He sends His Son, right, to redeem His people. And that redemption the process of it has already begun. Right now, when I tell you the devil is terrified of it, that's why he just wants us to be quiet and keep our head down and shuffle along. But at the end of the day, we won't be quiet, because this is the voice of the Lord that they're hearing. Right? So with that, I'm going to let this video play and I'll be back.
The Rosewood Massacre was a brutal, bloodthirsty, hateful, jealousy-fueled attack on the black town of Rosewood, Florida in 1923 by massive white mobs. The town was completely decimated and burned to the ground. The people of Rosewood would never return, and many left with only the clothes on their backs. In 1845, Rosewood was originally inhabited by both blacks and whites. Subsequent Jim Crow laws following the Civil War cultivated segregation in Rosewood as it did in most of the South. Many of Rosewood's residents worked at pencil factories. However, the cedar tree population used to make pencils soon became decimated and white families moved away in the 1890s. The white families settled in the nearby town of Sumner. By the 1920s, Rosewood's population of about 200 occupants was almost entirely black except for one white family that ran a general store. On January 1, 1923 in Sumner, Florida, 22-year-old Fannie Taylor was heard screaming by a neighbor. Taylor was covered in bruises, claiming that a black man had broken in and raped her. In reality, Taylor was beaten up by her lover while her husband was at work.
The Thyroid Massacre was a French massacre during World War II, where black colonial soldiers were murdered after they asked for equal pay and better living conditions. They demonstrated in protest against the failure of the French authorities to pay salary arrears and discharge allowances. A French general promised to have the rate changed that would be equal to white veterans and that they were to be soon paid in full. However, early the next morning, the French opened fire upon the camp, killing nearly 300 black soldiers. The incident was intended to serve as a warning for all persons of color serving the war. In March 1945, a military tribunal sentenced some of the survivors to 10 years in prison. 5 of the prisoners died in detention. As President Vincent Auriol visited Senegal in March 1947, the prisoners were released, but didn't receive veteran pensions.
It was called the Red Summer of 1919, named for the blood that ran through America's cities during months of racial unrest. African-American soldiers had returned home from the Great War, World War I, to a country still teeming with discrimination. And in their quest for civil rights, tensions between blacks and whites reached a tipping point. Deadly race riots broke out in over 24 cities, but one rural town, Elaine, Arkansas, would become the epicenter for the bloodshed. The violence there, lynch mobs, torture, indiscriminate murder, was so horrific it would go down in history not as a race riot, but as the Elaine Massacre. This is history. Dark history. During World War I, more than 350,000 African American soldiers enlisted to serve. But while they fought for democracy abroad, their own country, America, was still not willing to see them as equal.
Supremacy was very mainstream at this time in the United States. Basically, a lot of African Americans were seeking to obtain their full rights and equality in the United States, and violence was often used by mobs of whites.
Tensions reached a boiling point in the summer of 1919. Race riots broke out in dozens of cities across the country. But in the rural South, something even more menacing was taking form. There, slavery existed in all but name. In a system called sharecropping, farmers provided landowners with labor for a share of crops produced. But the system was rigged. Sharecroppers were often kept in perpetual debt.
One black sharecropper raised $500 worth of cotton, and his landlord told him, "Yeah, but you used $697 worth of supplies, so you owe me money."
Everyone who has any power at this point is working to make sure they keep African American laborers tied to the land.
For roughly 50 years, the system went unchecked. In the fall of 1918, a black man from Arkansas had had enough. Robert Hill had decided to form a union to represent sharecroppers. It was a dangerous decision, and one that would set off a chain of events involving mass murder, torture, and a landmark Supreme Court ruling. But first, he would need to organize.
In his message, Hill was pretty simple and direct. Why is it that we cannot have fair payment for the honest and hard work we do?
Despite the inherent risk involved with challenging whites, World War I veterans and other black sharecroppers became card-carrying members of the Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America.
He believed that by paying dues, these members could have the services of lawyers and sue plantation owners for cotton that had been stolen from them and false numbers that had been placed in the plantation stores' books.
On the night of September 30th, 1919, Union members gathered in Elaine to discuss their legal plan.
This is in Phillips County. It's basically just a crossroads at this time, a road, a few houses, a railroad siding, no streetlights. There's also a one-room wooden church, and that's where the Union met. Expecting that they might have trouble, the Union posted a guard of about 6 men. They had shotguns and rifles. The meeting's taking place, and while they're having this discussion, a car rolls up the road.
2 white men were in the car.
By one account, one of the white men in the car said, "You all get away from there." And shortly thereafter, a shot was fired.
Though it remains unclear who fired first, a barrage of gunfire broke out. One of the white men was killed almost instantly. The rumor of a black uprising spread in a matter of hours. The idea of a sharecropper rebellion conveniently played into the hands of landowners who did not want their sharecropping practices scrutinized. They did all they could, as quickly as they could, to sound alarms that black farmers were out for white blood.
The story gets magnified that the town is under attack, that blacks are killing people in the streets, that there is a revolution afoot.
The sharecroppers quickly formed self-defense groups, expecting repercussions over the death of a white man. But they could not have predicted just how severe the response would be. The following morning, under the watchful eye of Sheriff Frank Kitchens and his deputies, posses of white men were sent to find, detain, and kill the offenders.
When you have an out-of-control mob just being told there's a Negro insurrection going on, that mob's being very indiscriminate in its violence. You see houses being attacked, black-owned homes being ransacked.
The black school was burnt. Notable families were killed.
Black women and children have to go literally hide out in the woods because many of these people are indiscriminately shooting at African American women and their children.
Black veterans and other African Americans took up arms in self-defense.
This no doubt just feeds into the mob fervor. The fact that, they're daring to shoot back at us. This must really be an insurrection.
One historian has identified more than 20 different killing sites where African Americans were being killed.
There are stories that mob members were taking souvenirs, such as ears or fingers from the bodies of fallen African Americans.
One of the leading black families of the county, they weren't even in the town. They had just received a brother back from the French front. They are pulled from a train, put in the back of a car, and they are stabbed, shot, and their mutilated bodies are left on the side of the road.
Within 2 days, 500 U.S. troops were sent to quell the supposed black uprising.
They don't find any blacks killing or shooting down the streets. In fact, Colonel Jinks reports that the city is filled with hundreds and hundreds of white men with guns. Many of the individuals who were hiding in the thickets were former soldiers who had just gotten back from the war. And when they see the army troops come, they rush out, believing that the army troops are there to assist them. The army believes that these people are rushing toward them to attack, and they're cut down by machine gun fire.
Although the exact number will never be known, a recent estimate suggests 237 black men, women, and children were killed.
Right. See, they're not proud of their history, but it is history. It happened. And we have all the right in the world to speak on it. We have all the right in the world to complain about it. Right? Because we're still dealing with the effects of it to this day. Right? But like scripture says, we go to the book of Galatians. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 7, it says, "Be not deceived. Power is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." Got to get that back, man. You must get that back. The Most High is a just power. Right? So all of these things that we seeing go on today, that's why we cheer it on. Because we understand ultimately what it means. It's the beginning stages of the get back. Right? That's why we love to see our oppressor become uncomfortable with hearing scriptures pertaining to revenge and pertaining to who the Most High's people really are. Because we understand that's a part of their get back. Right? Fear fell upon them, right? When they heard. Actually, Salah, let me see 1 second. It's the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5 and verse 1. It says, "Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him, and made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for." Right? They seeing us, they hearing us, right? And at the end of the day, when they really see the salvation of the men of the Lord and the women of the Lord, right? And the men and women and children of the Lord, which make up the 144,000, which make up the 1/3 elect of the elect of Yasharallah. When they see it, right? Wisdom of Solomon chapter 5 and verse 3. "And they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves, This was he whom we had sometimes in derision, and a proverb of reproach. We fools accounted his life madness, and his end to be without honor. How is he numbered among the children of power, and his lot is among the saints?" Right? That's what they gonna say. I can't believe they was telling the truth. I can't believe we did this to the Most High's chosen people. Then all of the prophecies that the men of the Lord have been prophesying to their face is going to come into their remembrance. Right? The Revelation 13 and 10s. Right? The book of Obadiah. Right? The Isaiah chapter 14. Matter of fact, let's get that. Isaiah chapter 14 verse 1 says, "For Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob." Right? The Israelites who basically are considered the Gentiles, right? Spoken of in the book of Romans, right? They shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Ain't gonna be no more whatever you call yourself, wherever you are. It's gonna clearly be who, you know what I mean, you're gonna cling on to who you really are at that time. Right? It says, "And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for service and handmaids, and they shall take them captives whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors." Right? So Once all of us come together as one nation, and Yahweh gives us the power and the strength to round up, that's exactly what we're going to do. The people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Yasharallah shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives whose captives they were. And they shall rule over their oppressors. Right? Simple as that, man. Y'all got to get that back. Thus saith Yahweh. Right? So all you individuals out there that's claiming that the Bible produces weak individuals, that clearly you don't read the scriptures. Right? Clearly. Right? Because this book produces grown men, right? Grown righteous men and grown righteous women. Period, point blank. Right? And we know where our strength lies. Our strength ain't in a gun. We just saw that. Our strength ain't in organizing. We just saw that. Right? Our strength ain't in building our dollars together. We saw that. And we saw it failed because Job 9:24 says, man, let me see. I think it's Job 9:24. It is Job 9:20 and Job 9:24. Let's see. Yeah, Job 9:24 says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, wherein who is he? This devil runs this earth. So you trying to pull together something that belongs to him, or you trying to fight the devil with something that belongs to him? It's crazy as hell. It's idiotic. It's ludicrous. All right? Because that's not your blessing. Your blessing is spiritual. That's why the weapons of our warfare are spiritual. They're not carnal. All right? But soon that spiritual go manifest into the physical. That's what we saying. They get back. And we seeing the beginnings of that get back. And then ultimately we gonna see it all the way together, just like it says in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5. All right? So I ended with that, man. And Yahweh Shemi Al-Shah you are edified with this video and these precepts. Called Holoyim La Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Harakal Kodash Shalom Yashala.